Welcome to the WagerTalk Podcast for the week ending February 24th. We've got a big show tonight as William Bernanke joins us from CG Analytics. He's going to talk to us about the new football league and how the action was in week 2. We'll have some other questions for him involving the injury to Zion Williams. We'll be talking about that as well. Another edition of Handicapper's Corner tonight. And, of course, Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin in studio with us. And behind the controls, we've got Jared making sure we sound good. I'm your host, Marco D'Angelo, so let's get this party started.
Hey, Jared, I just got to jump in there that Marco never gets. When someone's sitting in for Mark, he never mentions anyone else. So you should feel very special that Marco mentioned you and didn't say Mark Seidel, which he'll probably say at the end anyway.
Ralph. Hey, Will, thanks for joining us. Did you survive the blizzard of 2019?
Oh, yeah, it was fun. I tell you, the hardest part was finding a ice scraper and a broom to just push off the snow off the top of the Jeep there. But otherwise, it was fun.
Yeah, well, you're a fellow East Coaster, so
yeah.
This brought back fond memories, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Fond memories made me think of playing football in the snow around Thanksgiving time. So that part was all good. It's nice to have some memories from here, and sometimes. Now and then. Now and then,
yes. My wife, who is a native of Las Vegas, she literally is like a little kid with the
Did
snow.
She make a snowman?
She didn't this time, but quick story. We're gonna bore or will, but when I first moved out here in 2008, we lived in Anthem, so we were higher elevation, and we did get maybe an inch of snow. Where her and Katie made a snowman while I was at work, and when I came home, the snowman was dressed in all of my Steelers stuff. It was gone the next day by noon. So, it didn't last long. But
someone knocked it down because it had Steelers crap on?
No, the sun knocked it down. Thanks, Ralph. Will you please tell Ralph how many Super Bowl titles Cleveland has?
Oh, boy. Actually, they should have 2. The Ravens, if you want to be technical.
Hey, I was at Red Right 88 when we played. Brian Sipe was passing to Ozzie Newsome, and we should have won that game. And then Oakland won it, and then Oakland beat Philadelphia. So that should have been our Super Bowl. It was like minus 25. And I drank a bottle of Southern Comfort, so I didn't remember the ending, but I knew I was there.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda. That's that's all Cleveland has. Hey guys, let's start football. And Will, it was the second week of the Alliance of American Football. Did the handle go up or down?
Actually, the handle went up. Nothing crazy. But it did go up better than week 1 for sure. Each game had more than one finger of bets on them, put it that way.
Okay. Now the bigger question is, how did the house do in week 2?
Actually, we won every game as far as the sides go. Orlando, San Diego, Salt Lake, and Memphis all covering. Some, couple dogs, couple favorites. It was great results for us, and pocketed a few dollars. Nothing significant, nothing crazy, but certainly it was nice. And considering all the line movement, that was the key. We didn't get beat by that big line moves, so that was good. The totals were kind of choppy.
Okay.
Will, let's compare it. I mean, last week you compared it to a MEAC game, I believe. Are they up where are we against like an off ESPN game for college basketball? Or are we still not there yet?
I would say it'd be like a West Coast Conference game, late night game, not involving Gonzaga, of course. St. Mary's and maybe Santa Clara, that type of play right there. That's a good one.
Okay, well, the big news in baseball obviously is Manny Machado with the Padres, and I know the futures are still new. You obviously made adjustments with the Machado signing. How much did you make an adjustment of?
Yeah, Padres season wins. We opened at 74.5, and now it's 78. So pretty significant adjustment there. Padres are 60-1 to win the World Series, 25-1 to win the NL, with some good action on those, but nothing that's moved the needle yet. So just the win total has been the thing that we had to move.
So 3.5, would that be the same for Bryce Harper, or does it depend on what team he goes to?
Depends what team he goes to, but I think it would be a little more just because of name recognition. It's not as much, what goes on in the field. It's just perception, as you know.
Will, when you make a move like that on the Padres, if you're giving them 3.5 more wins, did you do any adjustments with any of the other teams in the West? Because if they picked up 3.5 wins, that means 3.5 wins went away from some teams.
I honestly hadn't checked except for the Giants, which are still, I think they moved up a couple of wins, but that was before the signing anyway. Actually, Giants went down, a little bit before the signing. The other teams we haven't adjusted yet, just waiting on Harper. Really comes down to that.
Well, I have one question, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, and, it's something I look at for value, betting against them. When you start your win totals preseason and you have the base numbers and you're just about to release them, do the win totals equal the number of games played, or do you slant it more towards the over because people tend to play overs?
Well, it really depends on the team. So, if you look at some of the, bigger public teams, Yankees, Red Sox, even Houston now, they would be a little shaded. It would make, it would certainly wouldn't add up to what you think. But some of the teams that we don't get much action on, we try to encourage action with a number that might say, get some overplay on it. It's hard for someone to bet under with some of those lower, bad teams, because it's only a certain number you can put up there. You can only go as low as a certain number.
So if we took all 32 teams and multiplied them by 82 games, the over-under, you're not worried about that over-under equaling how many games are being played. You're making adjustments based on who you think's going to bet what.
Absolutely, exactly. That's how we're doing it there, based on the action.
Yeah, almost always you do that.
In the NFL, guys sometimes try to make them close. I mean,
baseball, it's always going to be totaling all the wins of the teams will be more than what the games will be played.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. It's a weird thing, but it all comes down to what we're seeing and what we're trying to see. Also, encouraging some action on teams that we have no handle on.
Yeah, well, it's not weird because again, people have to realize you're in the business to make money, and you're putting a line where you think you're going to get equal money on both teams, not necessarily a line that is just or where you think it should be.
Oh, absolutely. It goes with every sport, really. It comes down to that.
Well, let's talk some college basketball, and obviously some big basketball games now. Virginia, Duke, Tennessee, Kentucky. Last night, North Carolina. Tell us, I'm excited to hear. We know what the cost was to get into Cameron to watch Duke Carolina. Was this the largest college basketball handle, and did it compare to like a big college football game?
Yeah, the handle was great last night, and it would be like a mid-level college football game. Nothing like certainly not a...
Not an Ohio State, Michigan.
Yeah, not like that, or no playoff game. I would compare it to a Saturday where you have maybe Texas Tech playing Baylor or something in that range. That would be the perfect comparison. And I actually looked it up and got some similar numbers there. So that's what it would be in that range. And but it was a great handle, and I think the in-game handle was effective when Zion went down. So I think a lot of bettors kind of were, just maybe not sure what to do at that point. Some bettors, of course, know what to do, but the bettors who were hoping everyone's in there, I think shied away in the in-game handle, but the full game handle was great.
Well, and for a while there, we didn't know if he was going to be back. Once he left, if you followed Duke, you probably knew he wasn't coming back, but for a while you didn't know if he was going to come back, if he just went to get a shoe, if he tweaked something, or whatever the case was. So that had to be a quasi gray area there, with the live betting.
Oh, yeah, certainly. Until there's an announcement there, you're not sure what to do. You just have to, put your numbers out and believe in and a player's worth only a certain amount of points in that situation, with all things considered. With the game to adjust or days to adjust, you have plenty of time to move your numbers accordingly.
Staying with that thought, first off, how was the handle on that game as far as how did you fare is what I should say in that one? Where was the public last night?
Oh, we did really well. well. A lot of late Duke money came in from like 4 to 6, Pacific time. Unexpected, but it did come in, and got the line past 10.5 there, and the money line kept rising too. A lot of Duke money line tickets, and obviously those all went up in flames, and it was really never in doubt. So that was a great result, and I didn't expect us to need. North Carolina, especially early in the day when they were actually, the ticket count was like North Carolina 60% tickets in dollars, and that shifted completely in a 2-hour span.
Now, moving forward with Duke, with the injury, I've been asking a lot of people around town, what do you put the value, point-wise, where are you going to adjust the Duke team right now moving forward without Zion? How many points do you think he's worth?
About 4 to 5 points, and then I think as Duke gets accustomed to not having him out there, that could be less depending how they play, because the Barrett and Reddish, just to name two of the players, I think they're going to flourish now that he's not there, and you're going to see these guys just play incredible basketball, and I don't think Duke is going to lose too much in that sense. So we may readjust those lines again once we see how they play and how Duke responds to this. But, best coach in the country, two of the best top 5 draft picks, arguably, they're not going to lose that much here. But initially, 4 to 5 points is a safe spot there.
Now, when you guys are trying to come up with that number, how much of it is what you truly think is the value, and then you have to take a step forward and add a little bit to that, because you just know that, public perception is always going to treat an injury bigger than it is?
Oh, certainly a little of both, but you want to err on the side of caution and absolutely believe that the public will overreact to something like that. So that would be the first thing to look at, and secondly, your own numbers added to it.
Did any of the future monies change? Did you change any of the teams right behind Duke because of the injury, or is wait and see how long he's out before anything like that happens?
Wait and see, really, to how long he's out. As far as Duke, they're still we adjusted them slightly. I think they're plus 230 now. The other teams, there was some slight adjustments. I don't even want to get into the exact numbers. They're so small. But it's a wait and see. I think it's a good, after the weekend we'll get a better feel for, how Duke is and how some of the other teams, we know how they're going to play. But, you never know. Some teams just come out of nowhere regardless, and we adjust them as well, especially North Carolina. Now that they won, they look so good. Last night, even with him in there, I think they would have won. They're going to have to adjust them too.
Moving to the NBA as they return tonight from the All-Star break, with the trade deadline ending, the break and everything, now it's the so-called second half of the season, even though we're past the halfway point. But it's the march to the playoffs and teams jockeying for position. Have you guys had any movement in the futures market with teams after the trade deadline and everybody settled and see where everybody landed?
Yeah, trendy pick for us has been the Bucks to win it all. We're down to 7-1, and we've taken a lot of action on them, a lot of tickets, some fairly big, mid 5 figures, which adds up, with the hefty price there. Of course, the Lakers are still a popular pick to win it all. They're 35-1 now, which is way higher than we're, in season open. Nuggets to win the West is very popular, 12-1 to win it all. They're 30-1, and the Celtics to win it all, 12-1, are still pretty popular. I think a lot of that was early in the year, but we've slowly but surely over the All-Star break, we took some more Celtics tickets to win it all, and that's they're a pretty big liability.
Would that be your biggest liability, Boston?
Right, Lakers are still the biggest liability, just because of the hefty price now, and then the Bucks would be next, and then the Nuggets. Those three in that order.
I'll tell you what, if you're worried about that Laker money, I will take those bets off your hands.
Yeah, right. No, we're pretty safe and sound with that. We feel very, very good about those numbers. As good as you can be.
All right. Hey, Will, appreciate you taking the time to join us each and every week. And, stay safe out there in that blizzard that we had. And we'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Oh, always a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it. You guys as well, drive safe out there. Use some common sense.
All right. Well, we got all these West Coasters that don't know about the snow, Ralph. Well, the road, these guys, even when it rains out here in Vegas, they get nuts with the driving out here. But Good stuff from Will as always, and we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, guys, it's Handicapper's Corner. We're going to preview the pretenders and contenders for the second half of the NBA season. That's up next on the WagerTalk Podcast.
It's Manic Monday, and that means every pick at WagerTalk.com is just $9. Get a play in any sport valued at up to $30 for just $9 each and every Monday at WagerTalk.com.
Welcome back to the WagerTalk Podcast. It is time for Handicapper's Corner, and before we get to that segment, I want to give you guys a special offer. You listen to the podcast, you deserve something. And if you want to get a 7-day package from either Ralph, Dave, or myself, you can get 7 days for $79. Now, the regular rate is $119, but you can get 7 days for $79 when you use coupon code POD79. That's POD and the number 79. That's $79 for 7 days, all access, all plays, pick your capper. All right, let's get to Handicapper's Corner. And Ralph, NBA, we're taping on Thursday night. The NBA is back tonight with some games after the All-Star break. And so I thought it would be a good time for us to talk about some of the contenders, some of the pretenders, teams to look at to ride in the second half, and some to fade. And let's be honest, there's been a growing pattern in the NBA the last couple of years with teams flat out tanking. There's just no other way to put it. I don't like it in sports. I don't think it's fair to teams that are fighting for their playoff lives whenever they end up meeting a team that might be a border team, but, just doesn't give an effort, and a team gets an easy win that needs it. But it is what it is until they figure a way to fix it. We got to do what we do best and try to make money off of it. And are there any teams that you see starting the second half that you would think are going to be a play against that really has no reason to try to win?
Well, the two obvious ones I think are the biggest sellers prior to the All-Star break. And that would, of course, be the Knicks, who cleared all their cap space to try to get 2 free agents. And that would be the Clippers, who traded their guard to Philadelphia to clear their cap space. So, if the Knicks, there's not an issue with. I mean, the Knicks have 11 wins. It's tied for the fewest with Phoenix in the NBA. But, if you're the Clippers and you're 32-27 and you're in the 8th spot, I mean, making the playoffs, what's it going to get you when you just told everyone that you are going to try to get 2 free agents? You also have a position where below them, the Lakers, and again, I'm speaking of personal experience being in Cleveland and watching every LeBron press conference and going to the games and reading what the paper said about him. And, LeBron's quote was this. This was in today's LA Times. I love being uncomfortable. When I'm in that spot, I enjoy it. And, my intensity has to be high. Unfortunately for me, I don't like it to be this early, but it's been activated. So LeBron's in a position where he's a prideful player that gets compared to MJ as the best player. He's been to 8 straight finals. I don't think on his resume he wants to say, I've been to 8 straight finals, I go to the Lakers, and now I don't even make the playoffs. And there's very few players in this league that can say, I will play well enough to will my team to win. Harden has done it multiple games this year. LeBron's the other one that can. So to me, those are the obviouses. People may say, why are you telling me something that's obvious? But again, we're talking to a wide variety of our listeners here that don't follow the NBA as closely, and it may not be that obvious to them.
Yeah. Another team that, you just mentioned about Cleveland, they're a team that's on the cusp for, the worst record as well. Do they get into a battle with Phoenix and New York to try to get into that mix as well to have the worst record.
Well, the funny thing is, as we're getting ready to finish this segment off, Phoenix is playing Cleveland, and Phoenix is actually a 1-point favorite. Now, I will tell you this, again, reading the Cleveland papers often, almost daily, that Kevin Love has been out. And Kevin Love is coming back, and Kevin Love will be playing and starting. So the Cavs are not going to rest Kevin Love or hide him. They are going to play him when he gets back because they think they have potential to move forward, with Colin Sexton as the point guard and getting Love involved. So, the Cavs just are bad. It doesn't mean that they're tanking. It just means that comparatively to everyone else, they suck that bad. So I don't know if you're going to get the tank philosophy from Cleveland. And with Love, and if they're playing well, they may be actually a team that you get some value on later, playing on them against mediocre opponents that aren't looking for playoff wins.
All right, let's talk about, is there some futures that present some value? Now, we all know that, it's going to be the Warriors, barring...
You're laying, 3-1 or 280-1 for the Warriors to win it all? I mean, clearly they are... the favorite. And, you and I have talked about this numerous times. To me right now, I would not bet an NBA future to win the championship because realistically, in my mind, you need a Curry injury or a Durant injury for Golden State to lose. And why bet on that? You can find value betting on a team to win the conference instead. Unless you have a thing, unless you want to take that flyer, then yes, you're getting better odds to win the championship. But for me, I would not personally make a bet to win the championship because Golden State, to me, is clearly the best team. And while the East has clearly improved, the East now, for all this time, when LeBron was there, the Eastern champion had an easy time to get there. The West Coast had all the best teams. So LeBron often would win in 4 games, 5 or 6 games, and only play 14 playoff games, where some teams in the West were playing best 6 or 7, 6 or 7, 6 or 7, 21 more games or 7 more games than the Eastern Conference. Now, the Eastern Conference with these top 4 teams are going to beat each other up, so it's going to be much more difficult to get out of the East.
Yeah, here's the current odds from CG. Probably was at the Venetian last night playing cards, so I grabbed the updated sheets. Those 4 teams that you talk about, Boston
Mm-hmm.
are currently the co-favorites at 9-5.
Keep going. But I'm going to jump in on Milwaukee. So I think there is value.
Milwaukee is 5-2, and Philadelphia is 3-1 at CG.
So 2.5-1 for a team that has a 1-4 shot to get there.
Right. And to me, right now, Boston's been the favorite all the way through because of the big names. And
because they got there last year without Kyrie.
Exactly.
So now you're adding the team that took the Cavs and challenged the Cavs last year, and all of a sudden you're adding Kyrie to the mix. Plus, you also...
If the season ended right now, Boston's the number 4 seed in the East, and yet they're co-favorites to win the East. That's how much love there is for Boston. And you look at Toronto, who's been...
And Hayward. I mean, last year was without Kyrie or Hayward.
Right.
And, they went to the finals with those young kids that learned how to play defense and add those 2 to the mix.
And they probably have the best coach in the Eastern Conference in Brad Stevens.
Someone who's been there and done that.
Yeah.
Which Toronto hasn't because they always lose to Cleveland early. Yeah. Milwaukee, which because they haven't been there. And Philly, which, on a podcast a few weeks ago after the trade, I said I think Philly has the best talent. But these are a bunch of young kids that haven't played together and haven't learned to win yet. I just wouldn't have Philly in my mix.
Last year, Philadelphia made that big step last year, but then, they got so far, and then they just, they had that last series where they played horribly, but you expected them to make the next step. But then they added pieces to the puzzle, and, as much as talent as Jimmy Butler has, there's headaches with him. He just doesn't blend, he doesn't play well with others. Let's put it that way. And you've got a team that basically has three young superstars in Embiid, Simmons, and Butler. And, then they make the trade and bring the guy in from the Clippers. Is there enough basketballs to keep everybody happy there? That's my concern with Philadelphia. So for me, the team that's doing the best, they're on
don't
top
forget
right
about
now.
Reddick, too. I mean, Reddick for Philadelphia scoring 18 points, and Tobias Harris, who was leading the Clippers in scoring, is the player that came over.
So, the most talent on the roster probably is Philadelphia, but until they show me they can play together and play consistently, when they either have a super game and then the next night they get beat or struggle with a mediocre team. Maybe in the playoffs they'll have that mentality every night to come to play. We'll see. But I'll tell you what, from start to finish, the most consistent team all season long has been the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, right now I would pick Milwaukee to win in the East, but I'll tell you what, I have to wait to see what Mirotic does. I mean, Mirotic, I remember, 2 years ago when he was on the Bulls, games that he was playing, you would bet the Bulls. Games that he missed, you would miss the Bulls. He got traded to the Pelicans last year, did what he had to do in the mix, and while he got traded to Milwaukee last week, he has yet to play a game. Tonight, while we're taping this on Thursday, will be the first game that Mirotic will play for them. If Mirotic fits in the next week or two, then I will bet Milwaukee to win the East. Will I bet him to win it all? I might put a small percentage on it, but I think the value with them to win the East, you're going to be a 1 or a 2 seed with Toronto. You're going to be able to host those games. You have multiple guys with Milwaukee that can handle the ball because, you have Bledsoe who can handle it. You have Brogdon who can handle it. And then you got George Hill, the veteran, who can come in and teach those guys. And then with Antetokounmpo, I mean, you have a go-to scorer that can get you in a close game, let alone Middleton and Bledsoe. So, to me, if Mirotic fits in and isn't a detriment to this team in the next 8 or 10 days, then I think Milwaukee is worth a futures look to win the Eastern Conference.
Well, I agree with Milwaukee's my top choice. The second choice, Toronto's played so well. Toronto is a team that plays super at home. They're not as good on the road, obviously, as they are at home, and you've got to win on the road to be able to, to advance in the playoffs.
Not if you're the 1 seed.
Not if you're the 1 seed, yeah. They say it's not a series until the road team, or home team loses a game. But here's the spot for me. When you look at Toronto, so often this year, and, it really drives me nuts with these guys, sitting players. We know Kawhi Leonard has sat how many times this year? And usually
they've played 58 games, and he has played in 43, started in 43. So they've sat him 15 games.
All right. The majority of the time that they're going to sit him, and I don't have the numbers, I'm just quoting from what I've watched for the season, obviously is when they're playing back-to-backs. And usually if it's a back-to-back, when they're on the road, because you're more apt to set a superstar when you're on the road than you are at home because you don't want to really piss off your home fan base, but they have in the past. So Toronto, even though they've got a winning record on the road, and that's probably the majority of the games where he hasn't played, when it comes playoff time, you're not going to be sitting a star because they're not going to be playing back-to-back games. So you will have a Kawhi Leonard in there for all of those games. And do you think he is the difference to get this Toronto team over the hump? They've had talent for years. Last year they were the number 1 seed. They fired their coach at the end of the season. Well, thanks for a great year, but you didn't get it
past Cleveland. I mean,
right.
We see it in the playoffs all the time. If you can't beat this team, then what's the use? But again, the team had LeBron, so that was the different story. I don't think Toronto has enough pieces. They do what they do well, but I think in a playoff situation, even Kawhi, I don't know if he's been, that go-to scorer. He's averaging what he is, and he's
a defensive presence though, and that when you get to the playoffs, you got to play defense. The game changes once you get to the playoffs. All these teams that we've seen all season, up and down the floor, Ralph, with the open scoring, we've seen, how many times have we seen totals in the 230s this year with these teams? That will change when you get to the playoffs. And Kawhi Leonard is one of those guys that can change a game defensively.
Yeah. But when you have, Kawhi wouldn't have been, I just think that they don't have enough go-to scorers. And yes, Kawhi can take something away defensively, but we've seen it numerous times. When Kawhi is forced to play that type of defense, his offensive game struggles.
And what I will say for a team to put on your watch list, one of the hottest teams flying under the radar heading into the All-Star break was the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Magic had covered 5 in a row in 7 of their last 8. This is a team playing well right now, and they're 5 games under 500. Their goal, in my opinion, is to get this team over 500 and take that momentum into next season. I had a big play on them right before the All-Star break.
Yeah, you sure did. It was let's see. They were up by 38, and I text Marco late in the third quarter, nice 5% winner, and he texts me back, stop it, you'll jinx me. Oh, my God, Marco. You're up 38. You've controlled the entire game. There's no way you're losing. Stop with the, you'll jinx me.
Well, I've had too many times JD send me text and have things go horribly wrong. But you like to follow teams that got momentum, and Orlando is definitely a team that's having fun and wanting to play. And that's a team I think that...
Yeah, Orlando is a team, like you said, you're only a game and a half out of the 8 spot. They're a team that would like to make the playoffs. They're not like the other teams that sold, and they have what they have, and they're going to be a mediocre team until something happens really amazing for them. But you know what? You need to give your team a playoff team on occasion. And right now, they're only a half a game behind Detroit and a half a game behind Miami. So you are only 2.5 games right now out of the 6th seed behind Brooklyn. So you have something positive to play for where you can get up there and not only be the 8th seed or the 7th seed, but you could be a 6th seed playing the Indiana Pacers, or you're playing the Pacers without Oladipo now. All of a sudden you may be able to do something and advance. So I agree with you. When you have those teams that want to win, are only a game and a half or 2 out, have had a strong home edge, then certainly look at them.
All right, good stuff, Ralph. That's going to wrap up Handicapper's Corner for this week. We'll be back after a quick break. When we come back, we're going to preview some big college basketball games for the weekend and an NBA game for Sunday. That's up next on the WagerTalk Podcast.
Every Tuesday, WagerTalk.com offers a best bet selection from its hottest handicapper. It's a great way to introduce yourself to WagerTalk.com with a big best bet winner for just $2 on $2 Tuesday.
Welcome back to the Wager Talk Podcast. This segment is brought to you by uwager.eu. Get a 50% sign-up bonus when using promo code WT50 when signing up. This offer is exclusive to our Wager Talk listeners. All right, guys, sometime we are going to record our breaks because we get some really good conversations here, and we found
you say that Kelly says it when we do videos. We should just have an all outtake show of Wager Talk, and someone follows around with a little recorder.
It's amazing, and we're going to open up the games with Davidson in Rhode Island, and we were talking in the break, and we found out that Dave went to the original A&P store back in Rhode Island.
This store was pretty old.
Yeah,
even when I went into it, we were talking about getting stuck in snow, and your parents, your mom, are evidently panicking every time.
Oh, yeah. Send Dad for milk and bread.
So this was not a big deal in my neighborhood in Rhode Island because the A&P was literally a tenth of a mile away. So it's like just walk up there and get whatever you want.
And in case you guys are wondering why we're talking about snow in Las Vegas,
right.
We just had the blizzard of 2019. We had, I think, in the high point in Summerlin, they had 7 inches in Summerlin.
Yes.
Yeah,
that really is bizarre.
7 on the ground that you could put a ruler in, so
right.
It was more than that.
Yeah, because it's melting. My backyard was covered this morning. It's basically gone already.
Your biggest viewer, Twitter.
Yeah,
views,
that
right?
stupid video I put from just a picture of the backyard of the snow today, blizzard 2019. I had over 11,000 views on Twitter already today with that. But people are fascinated with Las Vegas, and it's hey. They say it's a dry heat. Is it a dry snow?
The mountains look beautiful. I mean, you would think you're in Reno. You drive up and the mountains are covered with snow. It was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, well, I'm not shoveling the shit, so I don't care.
There you go. Well, let's shovel some shit on some picks here.
Well,
good segue, Dave.
Yeah, thanks. So Davidson is, they are not coming together as I think many people thought they would at the end of the season. They really didn't play particularly well against St. Joe's last week. They did win the game, and then
they got down 17 or 18. They had all the All-Star distractions.
Made a nice comeback against Dayton, but they lost that game.
Yeah.
Now they should get back in the win column here at Rhode Island. URI, look, let's just call it straight. The downgrade on the coaching from Hurley to Cox has been enormous, and Cox is one of those guys. He's got to learn. Okay, he's a rookie head coach, but sit down and shut up. Okay, he's one of these guys who is just in constant motion on the sidelines, and I've always detested these coaches because I think they distract their own team. I really do. It's okay to get up on occasion and yell some kind of
I've never thought
instruction.
about that. That's a great another point just to throw into the mix.
I really don't. It's just personal preference. I do not like these coaches who are up and down. Real. Mm-hmm. They're basically like a sixth player on the floor who never shuts up. And I think that while Rhode Island figured to be down somewhat due to the personnel losses from last year, I mean, they weren't going to be as powerful a team. They've dropped further than that. And I think a lot of that is on at the Cox doorstep. He's got to get more experience and settle down a bit. Until that happens, Rhode Island is really going bad right now. I mean, if Davidson had a tough weekend with a split and no covers, it was worse for Rhode Island, and I'm glad of this result. But I had Virginia Commonwealth against them the other night, and they just got absolutely trampled in that game. They're not a go-with team right now. I think Davidson, despite their shaky recent play, would have to be the right side here.
I'm exactly with you, Dave. In the last week, I've had 3 plays on these 2 games. I lost on Davidson against St. Joe's.
So did
I lost on Davidson against Dayton. I thought they would bounce back, but I won on VCU against Rhode Island, and it's simple for me. I think Davidson is happy to get away from home. They had all the All-Star distractions. You had a lot of NBA scouts there. Curry, did he make his appearance at the game?
Yeah,
he was at the game, and that's why they got back against St. Joe's. And it took them a lot of energy to come back from 18 or 15 down in the first half to win by 8. Then they get down against Dayton. They fight back.
Oh, way down against Dayton.
And then I think they tie it once, but they never take the lead, and they end up losing by 1. But you look at the numbers. Rhode Island, their last 4 games, they've shot 30.2, 32.7, 29.6, and 33.0. Your last 4 games, your best shooting performance is 33.0.
And they face a team here that actually, the percentages haven't been there the last 2 games, but normally Davidson plays very stingy defense.
Davidson, in 14 games before Dayton, didn't allow anyone to shoot over 45%. Dayton is their worst game, and that was 48%. So, yeah, I think it's one-sided. I think it's the Wildcats shut them down, and I think Davidson, coming off that loss, takes it out on Rhode Island. I
agree with you guys 100%. I like Davidson in this spot. And I think that the Monday game, and Dave, if you remember, we did that game it was either Monday or Tuesday, but it was one of the games we did on the radio show. And I told you that line that day just something didn't seem right with Davidson in that short number to me. And, and I gave the Dayton side out on the radio.
Like Dayton. I didn't use it on the service, unfortunately, but.
And it was one of those spots, and I think it was the hangover. Even though they won that game on Friday night, I think, like you said, all of the people being there, it was such a big game, and it was on TV. It was, Friday night.
It was tremendous. It was sold out days in advance, or maybe weeks in advance. I mean, that was a really big game for Davidson. And, I don't think Davidson played a bad game against St. Joe's. What are you going to do? St. Joe's hit 10 3-pointers in the first half.
Right.
I mean, sometimes
you're not going to win games like that.
You're just going to give the other team credit and say, hey, they made their shots.
So I agree with you guys. I think Davidson is the play here, and because of the last two games, we're getting a decent number. It's only -2 is the number that I saw. So we'll go ahead and take the Davidson side here on the road -2. Heading into Saturday, guys, we got some great games going on Saturday, and here's one. We did this one, I believe this is one of the games we did at videos yesterday, Tennessee at LSU. But now we've had another game under the belt. We knew that Tennessee had already played Vanderbilt and had that lackluster game, but we didn't know that LSU was going to get upset last night in overtime. Tough game with Florida. Ralph, I'll start with you. Tennessee going into play LSU. LSU, this is the team that beat Kentucky, but Kentucky's the team that beat Tennessee. So who's going to win this one here in the mismatch of the three teams?
Nothing's going to change from my video. I thought LSU would struggle against Florida. I wasn't sure they were going to lose outright, but again, still the same. LSU went from no one expecting them to do what they've done, having a lot of young players, to all of a sudden thrusted into first place in the SEC and now having a bullseye on your back. To me, these teams are mirror images of each other, but Tennessee just being better. Both have very good offenses, mediocre defenses, having the extra day rest, having Tennessee off Vandy, having LSU off the physical Florida game. To me, I like Tennessee in this spot, and it has potential to make my card.
Dave, I always like to do, I call it the old ABC handicapping, where when you get John Q. Public and they look, and we have teams that, when they look at who they played. As I said, Tennessee beat, LSU beat Kentucky. Then Kentucky beats LSU. Or beats Tennessee.
Yeah.
So that means LSU should beat Tennessee, if you do the round-robin effect there. But that's not the way you win in betting pro sports, but unfortunately pro and college sports. But that's how people look at things. It's a big difference going into Rupp Arena as opposed to going into LSU. This is a much easier venue for Tennessee to go in. And I agree with Ralph. I think Tennessee gets the job done. How do you see this one, Dave?
I don't think I do. Both teams are safe to me. They're just playing for seeding at this point. They're both in the NCAA tournament, and
SEC conference title still up.
I don't know. I don't know how much that means. I think there's certain games where we talked about Kentucky last week, and I know I used Kentucky as the best bet on the show here, and I thought that was a spot where there was a little something extra on the Kentucky side. I don't know that there is here. I think we're now getting to the point where these teams are looking. They're in, okay? They're in the tournament, and they're probably going to try and do well in the conference tournament. But I think now, the big dance is just around the bend now. And I have a tendency to get away from games like this one where I just can't find a specific edge, and I just don't know how big the game is to these teams. I think it's bigger to fans than it is to the players.
Well, if LSU pulls off the win, we're going to have a three-way log jam at the top of the SEC. Yeah. So if you want to play conspiracy theorist and go that route. But I look at Tennessee, and you look, and I'm really kicking myself for not using Vanderbilt the other night.
I did.
And the only reason I didn't pull the trigger on it is because Vanderbilt did almost beat them in that first meeting.
That's kind of why I did. I thought Vanderbilt was okay, this is the game of the year for Vanderbilt. And they gave him a battle.
They did. It was a sandwich spot galore for Tennessee.
Well,
that's
Tennessee
the spot that kicks me that I didn't use it because
Tennessee knew they had to play 20 minutes, and that's all they needed. And that is all they needed. They played They probably played 10 minutes in the game, and they got the win.
But Ralph, I'm making this line Tennessee 2.5. What are you making it projection?
I had LSU won the game going into videos. I thought the line might be Tennessee 1.5 because of, like you said, as you mentioned, the disparate results against Kentucky. I think it might cost a point. I think I agree with your line, maybe 2. But Dave, just one of your points. We're recording this on Thursday. We saw Duke without Williamson last night.
Yep.
Kentucky, when Reed Travis went down in the second half against Kentucky, Calipari said, that's it. We're not running anything. They had an 18-point lead against Missouri, and they eked out with an 8-point win. And it was like, we're just reeling everyone in. I don't want anyone to get injured. So those situations occur when you have these good teams, and you're getting to this part of the year when you only have a few handful of games left. But so there are occasions where...
I'm telling you, it's not going to be a show here because they're evenly matched. But you want to be looking to take big points against these marquee teams late in the season. They don't care if they're a number 1 seed or a 2 seed. They don't care about that. The fans care about it.
I think the 1 seed people, it's prestige. But from 2 to 3 to 4, it doesn't matter. I agree with that.
You got to be looking to take big points, and you can't play scared money in college basketball. Oh, I can't take that team against powerhouse. Yes, you can, and you'll win.
I mean, Calipari just flat out said it in the postgame press conferences.
Yeah.
Reed Travis went out. He panicked. He pulled his starters. He brought in the bench, and he said, let's just play this game out and get out of here with a win.
Look, it's as simple as this. There's no other way to phrase it. Now, as good as this game is, Tennessee and LSU, it's an exhibition game. In big picture, this is an exhibition game.
Moving to a game that I think both teams want this game, but Kansas, they have that 14-year reign on the Big 12.
And they're back again.
Yeah. Now that matters.
Everybody came back to them.
And that's the thing, that matters. See, that's a different situation.
But if they want to do that, they have to win this game to set up the showdown with Kansas State. If they lose this one, the Kansas State rematch is really not going to mean anything.
But see, now there is a reason for one of these teams to be really interested in the game here. And that, to me, is the difference in a late season. Texas Tech, obviously a really capable team, but I think those 4 freshmen that Kansas has that are playing now are starting to get comfortable. And I think Jayhawks going to treat this as a bigger game.
I agree with you 100%. Both teams, and we did this video in studio yesterday, and one thing I pointed out, both teams have a week off to prepare for this game. So normally that would be no advantage to either team. But Dave, I think it actually favors Kansas because, as you said, Kansas has those 4 freshmen in the lineup. They didn't start the season. Many times we see these powerhouse programs start with freshmen because they have to just reload every year. This was because of injuries, and he had to get this lineup juggled during the season. So having a full week of practice, I think benefits them more than it does Texas Tech at this time to get those guys in more of a groove. And now that the Big 12 championship is back in their sights because of Kansas State losing earlier in the week, or losing last Saturday, I should say, to Iowa State, I think this is a live spot for Kansas, who's going to come in here as an underdog, and we don't get a chance to get Kansas as an underdog that often. You agree?
I disagree with both of you.
Oh, okay.
I am on the Texas Tech side. Kansas still 1-6-1 against the spread away from home. Kansas's only wins on the road this year. At Baylor, they pushed the spread. At TCU, they needed overtime to win. 4th game without LaGerald Vick. Those first three opponents, West Virginia, Oklahoma State, bottom of the conference, TCU, the overtime game. The number 1 team in the NCAA, there's 353 teams, the number 1 in defensive shooting percentage at home, Texas Tech, 33.2%. Kansas has not faced this defense on the road. Yes, the freshmen are getting experience. I think Texas Tech gets it done.
And you're correct on your stats, obviously, with Texas Tech, but let's not forget, Kansas has played the toughest schedule in the country of 353 teams.
Yeah, well, the Big 12 has played a lot of them. I mean, Texas Tech is in the 50s range.
Right, they're 51st.
I mean, you see the balance that these teams
just playing
have.
each other.
Yeah, I mean,
right. This is the best conference, top to bottom.
Outside of Oklahoma State,
and West Virginia
terrible.
this year is actually worse than Oklahoma State.
West Virginia,
and that's your worst team in your conference. That beats any worst team by double digits.
But
you take the worst team in any other conference and put West Virginia in a neutral court or Oklahoma State, you're probably a double-digit favorite.
Top 4 teams in this conference, I feel all definitely can go to the Sweet 16.
Well, Dave talked about it. I think he likes Iowa State the most to potentially move on.
I think they're the most dangerous team come tournament time.
You got guard play. And Kansas State showed in that Iowa State loss, if you put great guards against them, they can be exposed, and that's the difference.
Well, and the thing is, Kansas State's offense, it goes completely through one guy.
Yep.
And you saw what happened.
Dan Brown, but
but their offense really goes through Dean Wade.
Yeah.
He might not have to score all the baskets, but he's the guy out there. And you saw what happened to them when he went out of the game last
I agree.
week.
He has to touch the ball.
They
I
could
agree
not
with
run
that,
any offense.
Yep.
And what was, it worked out for me because I had the other side with Iowa State.
He missed the last 9 minutes and they pulled away. Yeah.
It went from being, this is, I've got a little bit of an edge here, to this is going to be an easy win. And you don't get many of those, so,
All right, guys, here's the tough one for Saturday now. Duke and Syracuse.
Oh, who knows what's going to happen? I mean, you have so many variables now, especially with the accident now. And
I've talked to a couple.
I've
talked to a couple bookmakers. See what you guys think. But what I'm talking to, they're saying 4 to 5 points for Zion. A difference in the line.
4 to 5 points, and you even.
I would say 6.
See, here's the thing. Yeah. I know it was a weird play, a shoe malfunction. It's still an injury, and this goes back to what I was talking about with Tennessee and LSU. This game, I know the revenge. Oh, revenge. That's all it means to Duke. And I don't know if that's enough, okay? I mean, it's not enough to – I don't knee-jerk and say, okay, well, I'm going to bet this team just because they've got revenge. I have to have other reasons. I think the game means more to Syracuse. I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Duke's coming out of North Carolina, and you know what Duke's next game that means anything is? The rematch with North Carolina.
Yeah.
Right.
That's that one. They're going to want that game. They're going to want to go into Chapel Hill and win that game. But no Zion.
Did you see Coach K at the end of the game where he just kind of brushed past Roy Williams? Just didn't.
He didn't. I didn't.
It was. They were floating it around Twitter. He just barely gave a handshake.
But I don't think. I don't want to go against Duke in a revenge spot either, because I think the kids of the team are going to look at this and say, boy, that was, we should have beaten this team. But I can't bet Duke here.
What do you put the number at, guys?
Well, let's throw in, okay, we have to mention, I mean, how distracted is Boeheim? He just killed a person last night. I mean, he was on an accident. He hit someone on the highway, and they passed away. I mean, no matter what happens,
I know
that has to be a distraction. He can come in the next day and say, "Okay, kids, let's focus." But those kids are worried about the coach. The coach is worried about what he just did. I mean, that has to be a distraction on the program, no matter what happens. Now,
what do you make the number? 5? Because what if all hands on deck? If Williamson's playing, it's what 10.
10. I agree with 10.
Okay, so you I mean,
I'm going to say
I think you got to have
4
that.
or 3. Yeah, and we know Duke's one issue is shooting outside shots. Well, who can stop that outside shot? Syracuse now later in the year, their zone always gets better and better,
especially at the Carrier Dome.
Yeah,
which
I mean, you just saw the way they shut down Louisville, so they're playing better. So my only issue is the Boeheim distraction, and will it affect the kids? I'm going to say it has to affect the kids, no matter what. I mean, he's just driving home, nothing happened. He's not going to get a ticket, but you still went through the process. He actually tried to stop cars after it happened, but he still hit a person that passed away. So, granted, we don't want to talk about that handicapping, but it is part of the handicap.
Yeah.
So, that happens once every 20 years in college basketball. So what's going to happen, I don't know. I won't be on the game because of those intangibles on both sides.
And the other thing, that aside, going to the X's and O's, if you have to turn around and change, now your game plan and your offense from Wednesday to Saturday, this is the toughest defense to do that against. Syracuse is not your traditional defense. It's hard to get open shots against them. You have to hit from the outside, and the inside-outside game for Duke is definitely going to be changed with, Zion not being there. I don't know that they get those looks that they need to knock down the threes.
Duke only has one true three-point shooter, Jack White, and he has struggled immensely the last few weeks. So I think the only way Duke wins that game. Now, Jack White was put in a weird situation coming in early in the game with a couple minutes last night, and he missed his first few threes. But I think Jack White would probably have to make seven three-pointers, 6 or 7 3-pointers for Duke to win and cover this game. And the way he's playing in current form against this defense, I don't think that happens.
I think the way to play this game is because of the adjustments that Duke is going to have to make with Zion out of it. I think you take Syracuse first half because maybe they'll get things figured out in game, but I think they're going to come out slow with having to run the different sets. We saw how they struggled last night, and North Carolina's defense is nothing compared to Syracuse's. I think the way to play this is Syracuse first half.
Yeah, but, just to finish that statement, Syracuse has no one on offense like Kobe White and Luke May. So it works both sides.
All right. Let's head to Sunday. We've got the big one for the Big Ten. Michigan State and Michigan, they're going to meet up Sunday and then one more time at Michigan State. These two games, in my opinion, is going to decide the Big Ten.
Probably.
All right, let me ask you this. Now, okay, Dave. It didn't matter LSU, Tennessee 1 and 2 in the conference. Nope. It does matter Kansas to win 15 straight. Doesn't matter here with these two teams who are both Final Four year in, year out. Well, not year in, year out.
I got to tell you, I think right now, considering Michigan State's health, I think Izzo wants to just get through these regular season games, get his guys back or get one of them back on the floor for the NCAA tournament. They can't lose any more players.
But this one, compared to the other two, this one is a true rivalry. I know
it's a true rivalry, but you got to look at things practically. If you're Izzo at this point, they already lost one player for the year. Now Ward's out.
Ward had a finger injury, and they say 3 to 5 weeks.
Right. So you
if at all,
you can't afford another injury, or your season's over. And I got to tell you, I think that's going to impact the way they play basketball down the stretch. So I'm favoring Michigan.
I'm projecting the line Michigan 2. Where are you?
I think it's higher than that.
You think higher?
Yeah.
With the Ward injury? Yeah.
I agree. Okay. Well, Ward was injured going in. I mean, that's it. But now they know he's out. Okay. He had surgery, right? And I think 4. But I can't go, maybe 3. Again, this is going to be a low-scoring defensive battle. No matter what happens and no matter who you play, they're still going to play defense.
I think you're looking 3.5.
Okay. One note, Marco, you have Michigan State 18-5 ATS, their last 23 games, including 7-2 on the road. But Michigan's gone 6-1 at home. As far as the over-unders, Michigan State 2-9 over-under their last 11. Michigan 2-8 over under their last 10 games at home. I think I agree. Losing Langford's one thing. Now putting a second player out there that handles the ball against one of the best defenses in the country that doesn't turn the ball over. That's the thing about these teams. Neither team forces a lot of turnovers, and neither team turns the ball over. So you're not going to get spurts, and you're not going to get these fast plays. To me, if you're going to see a total, if a total's above 130, I would look at that total.
I don't think you're going to get that.
Probably, okay. That's what I would say. I'd be happy to take anything under 130.
What's the projection?
Ken Palm has 132.
Okay, but that doesn't factor in Ward.
That's not the Ward injury.
To me, 128 maybe sounds like the right number, 129 maybe?
Michigan State defensively, number 3 in the country. Yeah. Last 4 games, they've allowed 55, 59, 44, and 60 points. You're not gonna get abundance points. And I'll tell you, if the line comes 3.5, for me, I see this as a possession game. I think it's going to come right down to the wire. If you ask me who the better team is, athletically, it's Michigan. Overall, I still like Michigan State better. I like the defensive teams. I think that, being a good defensive team when you get into the tournament and you face a team that maybe relies, a lot on one player to get the most of the scoring. When you can take that guy out of the mix with a good defense, that other team's going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And Ralph, you're saying all the time, defense travels. We talk about that with Virginia all the time. Well, this is a defense that definitely can travel, and they're playing well right now. I lean to Michigan State, but I want to see the line on Saturday. If I can get that over 3 number, I would be interested in that one. Sunday, we haven't done any NBA, so we're going to throw one NBA game in for you guys, and that is the Clippers at Denver. Here is, we did this one video on if you want a little more in-depth on this game. But, guys, the Clippers, beginning of the season, they were a surprise. They were playing well. They have definitely cooled off. But the team that's the big surprise, we all thought coming into this year that Denver definitely was going to be an improved team from last year because you saw the run that they started last year. You saw the progression. We see this in the NBA with these younger teams. They take that next step. But, man, I don't, I follow the NBA more. I know, Dave, you're not, big on the NBA till maybe playoff time. But this Denver team, I didn't see this good of a performance coming out of them. They're the number 2 seed in the West, and they're only 2 games behind
the number 1 seed.
Yeah, they're only a couple games behind the Warriors. And, Ralph, they're playing well, and they are dynamite at home. And then I'll share a little stat, let you talk about this one, your thoughts, and then I'll give you a little 21-0 angle in this game.
I am a Denver fan. I mean, obviously you have the best record in the NBA at home at 25-4. You've gone 20-9 ATS in those 29 games. At home, their last 8 games, they've gone 7-1 ATS. While you said they've struggled of late, that's because they went on a big East Coast road trip. In that road trip, I look at what Denver did in January. They had 12 games in January, and only once did they allow over 50%, and that was against Golden State. In that road trip, in that 5-game road trip or whatever it was, they allowed over 50% 3 times. I think they are now rested. I think the Clippers, who are now playing, I believe, their 10th straight game in a different venue. They had a 7-game road trip. They came home for 1 game before the break. They starting at Memphis Thursday or Friday. Then they have to play Denver. In this game, Denver has taken advantage of their home edge and the altitude by pressing the pace. That's the reason they're so good. So when you're playing the Nuggets, you look at the over, you look at the Nuggets. And in this case, I think the Clippers are in that 8 spot. They tried to trade who they had to trade to make their offseason moves. This is a tank season. You don't want to finish in the 8th spot if you're tanking and just trying to sign free agents in the offseason. I see them fading down quickly, and I like the Nuggets.
All right, and I teased you with a 21-0 angle. In the last 21 Clipper games, if you just pick the winner of the game, the spread is not mattered. 21-0 against the spread, whoever was the straight-up winner in a Clippers game.
Not that easy just to do it, but it's still it's a great number. Yeah.
It's a great number, and when you've got a team that is 25-4 at home on the season, now, we all know that once you start talking about a angle like that,
that's it.
The odds makers are going to, they're going to start trying to catch up to
Marco
it.
just blew all our value.
The funny thing is, though, they haven't been able to this year. You take that first period overs
in the
NHL
hockey,
just keep winning over and over and over.
And we're seeing 2s now.
Yeah.
Did
Today
you ever think you would ever see it? Yeah, there was a 2 the other night, too.
There's a 2 today that popped up. So
it's good stuff. So I'm on Denver as well, Ralph, with this one. I like them, and I just see them at home blowing out the Clippers. And I agree with you. I think the Clippers are going to be a play-against team down the stretch. I don't see them making a big run. There's no sense in finishing in 8th and catching the Warriors in the playoffs.
Especially, Dave, and I talked about it on the Las Vegas Sports Line today, especially when you have a Lakers team with LeBron who doesn't not want to make the playoffs.
Right.
I mean, he's made 8 straight finals. He doesn't want his legacy to be, I went to 8 straight finals, and I go to the Lakers, and I don't make the playoffs. And he has said that publicly, so his statements are out there. So you have the Lakers just below you and the Clippers above you. I think it's an easy marriage to say they are going to easily flop spots by the end of the year.
All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's going to be best bet time. We had some winners for you last week. Let's see if we can deliver 3 more best bets up next here on the Wager Talk Podcast. Welcome back to the Wager Talk Podcast. Before we get to tonight's best bets, I'm going to give you guys a offer for a week of service. You can get Dave, Ralph, or myself. Just do Pod 79. That's Pod 79. You can get $40 off a week of service. Normally $119. You can get it for just $79. That's 7 days, all access, all plays. And guys, I've been on a run. I know you guys have been winning as well. Let's jump on board. I don't want to blow my own horn, but I am. 12-1 the last 13 in basketball.
When you're that hot, you blow your own horn.
38-14 the last 42. So knock on wood.
52.
I'm going to keep 52. Yeah, thank you. I didn't say I was a numbers guy. I win.
Good handicapper sucks at math.
There you go. All right. I made my teachers proud back at old St. James Elementary. All right.
All right, best bets?
Best bet, Dave. What do you got?
I'll go. The games we talked about, Davidson. The scene at the end of Trading Places where the Don Amici and Ralph Bellamy, I forget their last name, the brothers, and they're broke now, and he's yelling as they're walking out of the stock. Sell, you need to sell. That's URI right now.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to be buying URI. That's a bad stock at this point. So Davidson, they're going to be the road favorite, and I don't think it matters. I think Davidson's the right side.
I agree with you on that one, Dave. Ralph, where are you going?
I'm going to do a game we talked about as well, and it's Kansas, Texas Tech. I am very strong. I know you and Dave both like these young Kansas players, and you think they now have experience, but I think going on the road in this situation against this defense is going to be too much. I think too much has been made of the Kansas success with wins against West Virginia and Oak State, and I just think that, against
TCU.
The
TCU is a decent team, though. But
Well, their wins were West Virginia, TCU, and Oak State.
Right,
so, and the TCU game was on the road,
right,
which was the overtime game. So, I think Kansas gets exposed for what they are, minus 3 good players. I mean, remember, Silva wasn't eligible, and then you add in the center who was out, now the other injury. So you have 3 players that we're going to start on this team that are not part of the team now, going on the road against the best defense in the country on the road percentage-wise. I'm going to back the Red Raiders of TCU.
All right. I'm going to go to a game we talked about as well, and I'm going to go to that Duke-Syracuse game. But I'm going to go the first half, as I said. I think this is the way to go with this. Duke's going to have some growing pains adjusting to life without Zion. And doing it against a defense as tough as Syracuse is not going to be an easy task. I think they come out of the block slow, adjusting to it. And, Ralph, you brought out a very good point. The Carrier Dome is a tough venue to go into to begin with because it's not your typical, arena for
best. Yeah, your sight lines are different. The bubble is different, being not a real. It's not a hard facility. It's a bubble on top of you still, and it's.
And you said that they're trying to get a world record for college basketball.
Yeah, they want to set the record for a college basketball game besides a tournament game, a Final Four, a regular season game. So, the place will absolutely be packed. And you know what? I'll tell you what. I mean, there's very few places that have a love for their coach like Syracuse has for Boeheim. And I'm sure the fan support that he's going to get reaching out because of what happened with the tragedy will just make that crowd even more special, more dynamic, and even louder. So it will be an electric environment in Syracuse.
And as I said, when they're going to come out, if Duke's going to struggle trying to crack that zone using the new lineup, it's going to be at the beginning. Maybe they get it. Maybe Coach K makes the adjustments and they figure it out and the talent prevails. But Syracuse went to Duke and was able to win. I think they come out with a big effort early. I think Duke struggles early, and I'm going to take them first half Syracuse for my best bet.
The old man Mr. Cokin, who pulled out the Trading Places reference. That, of course, were the Duke brothers. Randolph and Mortimer is the ones he was talking about.
Mortimer, yes, okay, yes.
So you are fading Duke. He is fading the Trading Places place with the Duke brothers. So we are all in.
We got all
sync.
kinds of references. Thanks for that movie reference from Ralph Michaels. He's got all the stats, guys. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's show. I want to thank our guest tonight, William Bernanke from CG Analytics. Obviously, my partners in crime here in studio, Ralph Michaels and Dave Cokin, for joining me and going out in the blizzard of 2019 Las Vegas to get here. My God, did they have to battle their way to the studio. I only live 90 seconds from the studio, so I just, jumped on a sled and just slid on over for the show this week. Also, want to give a big shout-out to our guy. He's back from his cruise, Johnny to Detroit, getting the podcast up and out to all of our social media outlets. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. You can listen on Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. And last but not least, our loyal listeners. We truly appreciate you guys taking the time to tune in each and every week and listen to us. Jared was behind the controls this week, making sure we all sound good and making fun of us during the breaks. So whenever we are talking, it's stuff that one of these days he's going to surprise you and keep the mic open and let you guys hear what we talk about during the breaks. That might end the podcast, but it will be funny. And for me, Marco D'Angelo, until next week, let's cash some tickets.